Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. For today's tabletop Paradox Rift testing, we're going to be starting off with Charizard, very slightly tweaked in the new format where we have that Stellar Veiled Jirachi. I'm currently not playing a counter catcher in the list, but I really should be. I'd probably just drop a boss for counter catcher in future, but I'm also trying to tech in the Pokemon League headquarters. I think this could be a really big stadium for Charizard going into this new expansion, where there's the likes of Roaring Moon, which is a scary basic racing deck. There's Iron Valiant variants, and can even make it more difficult for Yoga Loop shenanigans to happen against you. There's still the threat of Miraidon, and even using things like Iron Hands, forcing an extra attachment out of certain archetypes could be a huge headache as well. So I really like this tech inclusion. I feel like it's the right way to go for Charizard, but ultimately it's more of what we've seen in the past, and it's going to get a small freshen up, but I still believe will be very popular in the new format. And it's going to be coming up against the very cool Gholdengo EX, where we have that Make It Rain attack, does a 50 multiplier for each energy you discard from your hand. So we're going to be trying to accumulate large hand sizes, taking advantage of the superior energy retrieval as well as letter of encouragement. We do have some Fog Crystal in here as well. It synergizes nicely with the deck. It can tutor the Psychic Energy. That's why you're seeing 3 copies in the list, as well as helping you get Gimmighoul in the opening stages. And you'll notice we're playing an Irida Water package. You naturally will be playing Radiant Greninja and Manaphy in pretty much every Gholdengo no matter what. But in this case, we have the Hisuian Basculin and Basculegion 1 count in here. Basculin's an excellent lead in the deck. It gives you that Gather the Crew option. Whenever you go second, if you just start this guy, or you can attach Retreat into this option, you can get additional Pokemon into play, which is really important as we are quite a setup-based deck. The more Gholdengo, the merrier, really, which is fantastic. But also the Hisuian Basculegion doubles up as a single prize attacker that we could use in latter game stages alongside Iono, for example, to try and force a boss's orders and make the prize map more difficult for the opponent. The Upstream Spirits attack is a 20 multiplier for each energy in your discard pile, and you shuffle them all back into your deck. So it's a real big reload for us to help us make it rain in the future turns, and means that we don't have to have a ridiculous energy count. But also, with 13 energy in the deck list, we should be able to Basculegion through certainly some basic EX Pokemon quite happily, and make life more difficult for the opponent. Also, because we are playing this Irida package, we are playing the somewhat gimmicky Pyukumuku, but trust me, this card should not be underwritten, and do not cut it from your deck list if you are trying the Irida package. I think it's actually massive. We have a couple Level Ball, we have Ultra Balls, and we have these 4 Iridas that we are looking to play in multiple turns, and just getting an extra card here and there throughout the game and helping you cycle is so important for this deck list. So I am a massive fan of the Pyukumuku, and it's part of the reason why I want to try the Irida package over the Arven package, because it feels like that extra bit of reach between turns can be huge. Because we do have this Irida package, we can play 1 copy of Escape Rope. It means that if we have had to retreat into Basculin and somehow it's not knocked out, we can still rope attach to Gholdengo and still get an attack in, plus it's giving us some extra gust. The Lost Vacuum gives us a huge count of stadium bounces, because we do of course rely on our rulebox abilities to draw cards. That's why you're also seeing Work It in the deck list as a 2 count, and just a cheeky copy of Artisan to overall buffer our protection against Path of the Peak in general. There is a Clara in here for some Pokemon reload. Obviously, the more Gholdengo you have available, the better, so even when some are getting knocked out, you can start recovering these. But of course, it also acts as a guaranteed 100 damage coming back into the hand as well, thanks to these energies getting picked up. Let me know your thoughts on this Gholdengo list, and enjoy the games. If you're looking for PTCG live codes, make sure you check out the Potown store. You can get a 5% discount on your orders using that code OmniPoke. So we're getting into this first game. Jack is going to be playing the Charizard deck in the Charizard sleeves on the right, and I'm going to be playing the Gholdengo with the Irida package. I'm getting to go first in the game 1, and we start with our Hisuian Basculin, which is pretty handy, and I'm able to level ball out a Gimmighoul, which is always the objective of this archetype. We do have that Basculegion as a 1 prize attacker, but that's typically towards the latter stages of the game. So we're going to be all about getting our Gholdengo EX going as quickly as possible. I get the turn 1 attachment to the Gimmighoul, and then just going to pass things over to Jack, who starts off with the Manaphy. Let's see what Pokemon he can get established in the opening stages. We know we're up against Charizard, so there's not too much pressure coming down from Jack this turn. He's mostly going to be focused on building up his own board. So he's going to have a quick look through what Pokemon he has access to. Always the option to possibly get that Mew into the mix if he wants to have even more search for item cards. I can see there's a Pidgeot EX in his hand, so he has maybe a couple of pieces starting to come together for him. It may not all be there though, depending on what else is going on in there. I think I saw Fire Energy as well, so there could be an easy means of getting into a Mew for a quick dip for 6 cards to see if he can grab any other like candies or any more ball search for this opening turn. Looking pretty okay here. It's going to be a Mew and a Charmander in the end, which means we're probably going to see that Mew come into the active this turn with a retreat of this Manaphy. I think I actually do see Rare Candy already in his hand for turn 2, so he's got a lot going on. Iono as well for next turn. Does have a Charizard in hand. So ideally Ball Search for a Pidgey would be great here. I think it's just a straight up whiff, which is a shame. Maybe spends Ultra Ball now to get a Pidgey developed. You'd have to sacrifice your Charizard in order to do it. Jack's taking a bit of a risk there, going for the Mew punt rather than just going Pidgey Charmander there. If he goes Pidgey Charmander, he can just go Candy Pidge, Candy Zard from the Pidgeot, and then I play the fresh Iono. But this Ultra Ball fallback gets him Luminion Arven for the second VIP pass. So now he can go about things a slightly different way. He's a little bit more safeguarded this way as well, because if one Charmander was randomly going to get boss KO'd, he'd have basically no play. So maybe he was always thinking about the Arven and just wanted any item card from the Mew to be a fodder card from the Ultra Ball. So possibly just unlucky in that regard. I am able to get my first first Gholdengo into play, and we're going to use a bonus coin there. I can attach to the Basculin as well. Not sure what else is going on though. It looks like we're just going to gather the crew here to get some more basics into play. Try and get more gimmies going. Jack's able to candy into Pidgeot EX, and we'll flip the Forest Seal Stone first. Actually, there's real reason to... Oh, interesting. So we're seeing the research from the... Yeah, so we've decided that it's better that he uses the Pidgeot here, just in case if he gets what he wants from the research, he can choose to hold on to the Forest Seal Stone for later. So we'll see how the 7 cards plus the Mew here works out for him. I think does have Charizard, does have Ultra Ball as well, so could thin an additional card before using Mysterious Tail here. Jack keeping a Nest Ball around. Entei is a pretty solid attacker in the matchup because, of course, is hitting for that fire weakness. But also Radiant Charizard is a really nice single prizer that Jack can try and use to offset the prize race. So I do like holding on to that Nest Ball, as he is going to tutor out Charizard and then punt with a Mew, and he does find Rare Candy, which means he may not even have to use his Forest Seal Stone here, which is huge. We do see Candy Zard, Infernal Rain. Let's get some Fire Energy onto the Charizard and onto the active as well to retreat, so he can initiate this prize race. It'll only be taking out a single prize Mon, but with Charizard's low damage output in the early stages of the game, it feels like that's still the best thing to be going for here. Especially with that high hit points. I've only had 1 Gholdengo bonus coin. I haven't really drawn a huge amount last turn. Didn't play a supporter. So Jack's got to feel fairly comfortable that I'm not just going to blow him up. He actually is going to use Forest Seal Stone here. Not too sure what's the best thing to grab at this stage. Let's have a look what he's picked. Super interesting. If it's a card he's not using, don't really see why he wouldn't hold the Forest Seal Stone there. Maybe he's worried about Lost Vacuum. Gholdengo does play Lost Vacuum in the list. I'm going to get some bonus coins. I'm then able to Ultra Ball away Hisuian and my other Basculin. Because Jack's already taken a single prize knockout, it makes sense for me to just ignore Basculegion altogether now, and I'm just going to try and make him go through triple Gholdengo. Unless I can weave in a Clara later. We're able to get another bonus coin in. And, ooh, we do hit 3rd Gholdengo, so an extra bonus coin and Radiant Greninja now, so the draw has started to flow. I think that's our first letter of encouragement that I've picked up. Let's see if we can get all the way to 330. It's a lot. So we have 3 more cards from the Worker here. And then we have Level Ball. Level Ball could either be for this Gimme Ghoul. Oh, okay, it's going to be the Pyukumuku. So I may not be over the line yet. We really enjoyed playing this Pyukumuku. It's actually one of the best things about the Irida package, is that throughout the game, your ball search is always live just to see an extra card here. And when the Gholdengos start flying, you start growing a big hand size. And I think off that puke, I actually got the letter, which means I'm able to reach on this Charizard, I think. By the looks of things, if I'm going double letter, I'm probably there. And that's insane. What a big comeback from a really slow turn 2, right, where I just went 1 bonus coin pass. Now I've been able to go bonus, 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 Greninja, Worker, Puke. I've even been able to Ultra Ball another gimme here. And I'll be able to take the first 2 prizes, which is insane. Because you really want to stay on that 2-prize map if you can, because that's the way I'm going to stay ahead. And that's a huge KO from the Gholdengo. Let's see how Jack can bounce back here. Just going to fail the Nest Ball. The Entei is his easiest means of hitting through our Gholdengo, because it's a fire type. So I think Jack's plan is going to be hit with Entei here, take 2. Then he probably has to line up an Iono plus Radiant Charizard play. I think that's the best thing he can try and sculpt here to make it hard for me in the late game. Because he'll be able to keep up in a race, and he's just hoping that Iono plus 1 prizer makes life tricky for him later. I think this is the Pidgeot now, just seeing if he wants anything. Looks like it might be just an Iono this turn as well. Oh, it looks like it might even be eyeing up Super Rod. Having a debate for sure. Don't think there's any fire energy in his deck, actually. Interesting. He's going to play an Arven here. He's going to grab that Rod and Vitality Band. So hasn't used the Pidgeot yet. Just decided to play the Arven instead rather than using Pidge for the Rod. Then goes Retreat Arven. So a bit of a missequence, but is able to Entei for the card first, see if it changed anything. Then goes Rod. So I see. He had to have a Fire Energy in the mix here so that he could go Entei hit, attach to Charizard. But I do think his ideal play is still actually attaching with Radiant Zard anyway next turn. Because I should have a pretty easy time, especially with no hand disruption here, of knocking out this Entei. Shouldn't be a real problem for me. It could also be that Radiant Charizard was in prizes for Jack or something. We'll have a look. Either way, I'm getting some bonus coins in. I'm able to pitch again for an extra card. We're able to Clara, actually. We get back the Gholdengo that was just knocked out. The Gimme Ghoul. I'm actually going to forego one of the Gimme Ghouls, so I have the backup Basculin. It's actually kind of nice to get the Basculegion in the mix, because I know that Jack, his best line is going to hand disrupt me. So if I have Basculegion, it means I should have an easier time of like bossing for game. With so many energy that's going to be in my discard pile after this attack, it means I don't need to combine boss with like superiors and whatnot. I could just like have Basculegion plus boss for game on Luminion. We're going to use the superior energy retrieval, and we are going to use that Gholdengo for 5 energy and take the knockout. And it passes over to Jack. So his ideal turn is going to be Radiant Charizard, Iono, and that Radiant Charizard is actually in hand. I don't think Iono's in hand, though. Had Jack have held the fire energy from last turn, he'd have an easier route here. Either way, he needs to guarantee that he hits fire energy. And if he just goes Pidgeot Iono, he doesn't have that guaranteed energy and will only be drawing 3 cards. It's a little bit awkward here. We are going to see the Pidgeot. It is going to be the Iono. If he doesn't have the fire energy, he's going to be in a pretty poor spot. He could just retreat into a single prizer like the Mew for a turn or something, but still tricky for him. The hand disruption is pretty mandatory though. Oh wow, he does hit fire energy. So he does end up having his ideal turn here. And puts me on that clock where he goes down to 1 prize card remaining. And I basically have to get a Gust here to close out the game. Have a decent amount of energy in my bin. But I still have some draw on board. I have A couple bonus coins. I have possible Greninja plays. Looks like I'm debating whether or not to go Basculin. The reason to still go Gholdengo, even if it means I need extra pieces, is because I just get an extra card. So we are going to go for the Gholdengo for 2 in the active position. Then we can go 1 more bonus coin. We have Superior, so I can at least go Greninja. Oh, we already have Energy, so there goes Psychic Energy. And we do have 1 Superior. Looks like I'm lining it up right now. Getting rid of 2 other supporters. And we do have the boss's orders, so I can boss the Lumineon and blow it up. So, really solid game from the Gholdengo there. It was not until turn 3 that we attacked, but as soon as we did attack, we were taking 2 prizes every single turn. And you can see, when you're up against decks that don't have Path, even when you're getting hand disrupted, you can find these big combos to come together. So, Jack's going to be going first in this second game of our best of 3. I start with the Gimmighoul. He starts with Entei V. Not a bad lead, honestly. He can get some extra card draw in there straight away. He's able to pick up the Artisan from that Fleet-Footed. I believe there's Charmander already in the hand, so maybe Artisan for Pidge is what he's thinking about, but he may also be thinking, do I want to give my opponent this bit of extra help? In the end, he's going to go for it. I think it's reasonable. The Pidgeot is just so big for his deck as well. And straight away we are seeing that Pidgey. So he's got a pretty ideal turn. He is representing Entei swinging, even without any of the wacky combinations if he just attaches. The only awkward thing is that Entei is kind of better in the middle of the game. You don't really want this Entei to be taking a single prize knockout and then not have access to it on the next turn to like deal with the Gholdengo. You'd rather a Charizard go through a 1-prizer because it's bulkier, more effort for me to get through, and if the Charizard's knocked out, then the Entei can respond on the Gholdengo a little easier, because the Charizard would only be at 240. Jack's actually going to choose to try and disrupt a little bit here, chooses to loss away a Fire Energy that was in hand just to deny Artisan from me, which I understand. It's going to try and slow my development down. One of the great things about this Irida package, or if we were playing the Arven package, both do a similar thing here, where you just have so many supporter cards which get you towards VIP pass in the opening stages. So when you do go second, especially with the Basculin, we have so many ways of getting a pretty wide board early here. With the Fog Crystal scouting for the Hisuian Heavy Ball, I'm able to get a Gimmighoul, and I think I got a Psych Energy from the Fog Crystal, so I will be paying Retreat into Gather the Crew here. So I'll already have 2 Gimmighouls at least. There's the Worker for 3 cards as well. And it is just going to be that Attach Retreat. Get another Gimme down, and then we can Gather. I think I actually make a big mistake here. I get Quad Gimme, and I really think I should get a Greninja here, because it's just better on-board draw. I remember at the time thinking that this was probably a bit of a mistake, and we'll see if it punishes me during the game, but this deck's all about flowing those energies, and not having the Greninja just to see more cards next turn could actually hurt my options a little bit, but we'll see how it works out. Jack is able to Arven now. You already have the Forest Seal Stone on the active, so it's just going to cherry pick the Vit Band as well as the Rare Candy. We're going to see some Pidgeots plus Candy plus Charizard plus Candy shenanigans, that sort of thing. So Jack's getting pretty well set up here. We have Pidgeot on board. Oh, actually doesn't have access to all the treats here. It's just going to go for the Charmeleon, and it's just going to turn attached to this Entei. So it's not as ideal as I first thought. Oh, he's changing up the idea of Charmeleon. Debating a different supporter for next turn. I don't mind Charmeleon though, just for a proactive option. Yeah, just gonna hold a research for next turn. Okay, that's also fair. Gives him better chances towards like candy stuff next turn. And he's gonna initiate that prize race. Once again, it's on a single prize Pokemon. And the Entei should be fairly easy to KO if all things go our way. I start off with a Gholdengo, and we're also able to level ball Pyukumuku here. So we have a few draws. Only 1 energy currently in the discard pile. We'll need to see 6 total, so we probably do need some help from like Irida for letter and such. I'm going to start with the bonus coins. Let me see the pitch. And don't know if I have any supporter in hand, actually. This is where I really should have had a Radiant Greninja for more draw. My hand is... I think I have 3 Superiors in hand. I have Lost Vacuum in hand. I have Rope. I have some... just really clunky cards. And without an Irida to grab Letter here, we're just not getting enough damage on the board. I'm just going to hit for 100. And I think as soon as I make this attack, the game's pretty much over. Jack should always be able to race with a 3-prize gap and not slow down at all, just because Charizard has such great acceleration. I think the game pretty much ends as soon as I miss this KO on Entei. Realistically, I think the game would have gone very similarly to game 1 had I have got this KO on Entei. Jack used the first 2-prizer to take a 1-prize knockout, and he probably would have been in that similar situation where he would try and combine Radzard with Iono to make life difficult for me. And then it's that sort of question of, do I find boss or not? Jack's board in this case would be a lot better because he wouldn't have had a Lumineon down anyway. So I think Jack was a little bit more favoured regardless, even if I was able to KO this Entei. But we would have been in that position where the Gholdengo was a turn ahead. Whereas now the Gholdengo, it's not a deck that has any comeback strategy, really. It's all in on just trying to yeet those that damage onto the board. And now that Jack has that big 3-prize gap, I'm pretty sure I have nothing going for me. Let's see the top deck. Does it change anything? No, we just have that awful hand. We have, 3 Superiors, Rope, and this, that, and the other. But I put that down to myself. I should have definitely gone Radiant Greninja there from the Gather the Crew. I would have increased my outs to draw more cards to help me push over that Entei. Would have been good just to cycle energy into the discard pile, really. So a learning experience. We are still learning the decks as we go, of course. Figuring out how the matchups play out, as well as just how our decks and lists play out themselves. But yeah, some interesting games there. We got to see one pretty good pop-off with Gholdengo, and one where it kind of fizzled. The deck plays a decent amount of energy, but also cards that relate to energy. So we can have those sort of cloggers situations. We don't play a huge amount of draw supporters. And if you're not popping off with those letters and this, that, and the other... if you are just falling short of the mark, the deck will feel quite awkward. Let me know your thoughts on the games and the list down below, and I'm also going to end talking on what potential changes we can make to both of these decks. I think the big question for Gholdengo is going to be which is better. Is it going to be that Irida list that we demonstrated today, or is it going to be an Arven deck list? I think the upside of Arven is having that TM evolution can guarantee you those multiple Gholdengo on that second turn of the game. And we saw in my second game, actually, only having access to one Gholdengo meant I didn't really have the reach to close out my first knockout. If you do go down the Arven package, I imagine Bibarel becomes a really good fallback to help you around Iono, and also Sizzle is probably the most efficient single prize attacker that we have to include into the deck list. The Scyther already has free retreat, which is really handy, and Sizzle, of course, attacks for just 1 metal energy. Although it didn't come up in these games, I am considering the 70 hit point Gimmighoul as well as Stellar Veil Jirachi. If we are seeing lots of Iron Valiant in the format, that might have to be the best way to go. Even though we sacrifice a 1 retreat cost Gimmighoul, and we miss out on a Call for Family attack, making Gimmighoul a far worse lead for us in the deck, but sometimes the extra 20 hit points is just a big difference. And finally, Countercatcher could be making its way into the deck list. When we are playing heavy counts of Irida or Arven, one of those two will be the way to play this archetype, I've no doubt. Just having one Countercatcher in the deck list gives you many more outs to gust in the early stages. And then for Charizard, today we just had a real easy baseline that was basically unchanged other than having one Jirachi in the deck list, but I do think there's more innovation that can be had with Charizard. Countercatcher honestly should just be in the deck. I think going down to 2 bosses orders and just having one Countercatcher when we're already playing Quad Arven, it just makes a huge amount of sense. We're an evolution deck, so we oftentimes go down early prize cards, and it opens the door for so many great late game combinations as well, where now you can use Iono plus Countercatcher, or just makes you weave in that card a little bit easier. You have much more tutor for the card without having to use a Lumineon for boss's orders, giving your opponent possible easier prize maps. And seeing as though we are already playing the Arven package, the TM evolution is once again a consideration. At the moment, we only play 1 Charmeleon, no Pidgeotto, so it would take up a few new spaces in the deck list, but it can be a great way for us to relieve the pressure of Rare Candy itself. And the alternative is, if TM evolution is just that good, maybe Bibarel is again a decent way to go. Less guaranteed tutor from Pidgeot is a little bit scary, but that Industrious Incisors is still a fantastic option and gets better towards the latter stages of the game. My final thought really is on stadium cards. At the moment we're playing a League HQ, bit of an in-between card right now where it's trying to help out against the sort of racing decks, We know that Roaring Moon's a problem. We know that Miraidon, especially with Iron Hands, could be a big issue. Could also continue to be annoying for some Lost Zone matchups. So that's why it's in there at the moment. But a Collapsed Stadium could be another great way for you to force more awkward prize maps. If we tank with a Charizard, or if we just want to take a Luminion or an Entei off our board, it could be that nice secondary stadium. And Professor Churro's Scenario is a similar card for that idea, where we can force a more awkward prize map by picking up things off the board, or if we tank with a Charizard, especially if we're playing multiple Charmeleon, we could simply put a Charizard back into play all in one turn. We've had that effective heal, and we're still able to Infernal Rain more energy onto the board and make sure we come back with an attack on the same turn. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know what you think about this little extra section that I'm adding onto the end of the videos of my considerations, because even though we're showing these lists, they're all early deck lists, and I have plenty more ideas I want to try with even the old stuff as well as the new stuff. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow for another video. Cheers.